Very important part of this meeting, and which is the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's go ahead and do that now. I want to invite Board Member Fox to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so let's move to item number 2. Clerk, can you read that into the record?
Item number 2 are options for annual adjustments to channel licensees-based funding and our 2 cable commission budgets.
Okay, and I have a PowerPoint presentation. Don't normally do PowerPoints except at budget, but this item did get a little bit complicated, so I think it'll be helpful to have the PowerPoint to go through them. I need to back that up a bit. Wait a minute. Sorry about this. Okay, as your board is aware, the current policy for increasing the operations and PEG base that goes to the channel licensees at the annual budget meeting, this is the recommendation that the staff brings in, not necessarily where it ends up. But what we've been doing is basically applying the same COLA that the County of Sacramento gets for their general employees, which is usually based upon a CPI. So that policy has been in place in practice and in policy since after 2007. And after we developed that in 2007, recommended to the board, it was approved, then we did that a couple of years. Then we had an economic downturn where staff did not get a COLA, channel licensees didn't get a COLA. You know, a lot of people certainly were in that same situation, and that was around 4 or 5 years. After coming out of the downturn, we went back to the policy of, at the annual budget meeting, adjusting the bases based upon the COLA. Over the last few years, there has been much discussion at the budget meeting. I know Access Sacramento brought in certain requests, and they asked for several requests: minimum wage increase cost, payroll cost, insurance, other factors that they asked for in addition to what was recommended. And at that time, staff recommended COLA. 2 years ago, I believe the board approved the Access Sacramento request and actually allocated that same percentage to all the other channel licensees, just to be fair and to treat all the channel licensees alike. And then earlier this year, we had the budget meeting. Same thing happened. We brought in the 2% recommendation. Access Sacramento presented their request, including the minimum wage, the insurance, and payroll cost. And rather than approving that request, the board approved the 2% COLA and then asked us to come back in December with a better way to handle this at the June budget meeting so that we don't have to repeat that type of discussion every year. So with that, staff has worked on this, researched various things. We had a great meeting with the channel licensees where we've asked for their ideas and inputs. And some of that we put into the staff report, and we had a great discussion. And so with all that, what we have for you today in the staff report and in the PowerPoint presentation is 4 possible options for how to handle this at the June budget meeting, or in some cases, the July budget meeting. So option 1 is relatively easy. I think I just explained it. It's the current policy, which is we apply the county COLA to the base from the previous year, and that's included in the recommendation. So I don't think I need to explain that in much more detail than I already did. Option 2, and this is a little bit of a math exercise, so I apologize for that, but that's why I decided to do the PowerPoint. So option 2 is basically saying that we're going to look at the Access Sacramento information and calculate a minimum wage adjustment and a federal and state payroll tax adjustment on top of the COLA. And the table up there shows you that, yes, the minimum wage is going to go up for the next several years unless the state legislature does something different than what they've already did. I got this from the State of California website, so I assume this to be accurate. But there's a 50-cent increase in the minimum wage this year and a $1 increase for the next several years, as shown on this table. So with that, we're recommending that we bring in a COLA that includes the general COLA plus first the minimum wage adjustment. And the way that could be calculated, it's easier than what it looks like on this PowerPoint, but first of all, we can get the minimum wage hours from Access Sacramento. That's the number that we can get. In fact, for this year, it was 12,206, and multiply it by the minimum wage increase, which is 50 cents in this case. I'm suggesting that you shouldn't actually net out the 2% COLA that already was approved on the previous year, or whatever that COLA is in any year, because as Access Sacramento would tell you, most of their funding from the commission goes to staffing. So with that, since the minimum wage staffing was in last year's budget, and the commission already approved a 2% COLA, then it makes sense that it seems that if you did the 2% COLA and then plus paid for the total minimum wage cost, then you'd be double counting in a way, and you'd be applying something twice. So we're suggesting that you would take the minimum wage hours times the rate, and then you would subtract out 2% of the minimum wage hours times the minimum wage cost of, in this year, it's $10.50. And with that, I won't go through the exact math, but you get $3,540. Okay, so that's component 1. Actually, component 2, because component 1 is the 2% COLA, or the COLA that would be approved in any given year. So the next thing that was part of the request was payroll support or payroll cost. And there are, as has been explained at previous meetings by Gary Martin, there are many costs on top of just paying for the minimum wage hourly cost. Social Security, Medicare, unemployment insurance, other costs. So with that, if you actually pay for more minimum wage hours or even general COLA general staff hours, there's still these payroll costs on top of that. We looked into that, found it to be true, and so the third component of this option 2 would be adding the payroll support. In this case, we're estimating payroll costs at 12%, and this is based on EDD's website. I should point out right here that we also checked this out with Access Sacramento, and we did get some recent information that their payroll costs are less due to certain payroll taxes that they don't have to pay. So their cost is actually 8.3%. So when we prepared this staff report and this PowerPoint, we thought it was 12%. I am fine with keeping it 12% for what's being recommended today. If the board wishes, if we can do an adjustment on that. You'll see that this payroll cost isn't a huge adjustment. So if in fact we had to make a change because it's 8.3% and not 12%, it just doesn't make that significant of a difference. So I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out from the start. So anyway, the payroll support can be calculated by taking the payroll adjustment, which is the 12% that I mentioned above, and then you multiply it by the COLA cost plus the minimum wage adjustment, and with that you'd get another $1,800 adjustment. So for this year, the recommended COLA would be the would be the 2% COLA already approved, plus minimum wage adjustment that we just discussed, and the payroll support that we just discussed. So that, in Access Sacramento's case, that would be approximately $17,000. That actually, and what that does is it translates to a 2.9% COLA or a 0.91% COLA on top of the 2% COLA already approved. We are saying that this isn't just something that should apply to Access Sacramento. As in past treating all the channel licensees the same, we are saying that this COLA should be applied to all the channel licensees, except for the religious station, which, because of church and state, they do not get commission funding. So with that, we are recommending the 2.91% apply to all channel licensees. And also note that Access Sacramento did have a request for one-time they requested insurance be included in this equation. They had significant insurance increases this year because of they had some thefts, they had some issues with their truck that they had to replace equipment, and they had bought more expensive equipment, all of which I think led to increased insurance premiums. So we're just recommending that be approved as a one-time request this year. Granted, there may be insurance requests in the future, but it's hard to predict that insurance is always going to be so off the charts every year, and we think it makes more sense to have this COLA policy apply to these things that are going to be more standard year to year, and when things are odd or different or not, they cannot be as expected as much as others, that those things should be part of the one-time request for that year. So with that, we are recommending that the $12,685 for the insurance be approved, just not included in the COLA calculation. So with all that math, if you applied it to the channel licensees, this chart shows you what the effect is. And in the general fund, it shows that the approved 2% COLA on top of the previous base is in the first column. The second column shows the additional extra 0.91% COLA, which would have a total increase of about $23,590, and then the last column shows the total adjusted operations bases that would go to the channel licensees. And as you know, we have base in the PEG fund as well. So as we always do, the base is the base, and we always add the COLA to the base, and it could be in operations in the general fund budget, or it could be in the PEG fund budget, and so we would also apply those same amounts to the PEG fund budget, and that would increase the PEG fund budget by another $1,300. So that was a lot, but that was option 2. With that, there's option 3. Now, I said that we felt insurance was more of a one-time thing rather than something that we should include in the COLA. However, certainly the commission board may feel differently. And if so, we have option 3, which is basically adding the insurance to the previous option. Also, as in the previous option, since insurance was in last year's budget, also we think there'd be double counting if you applied. If you included the insurance in the COLA, but also applied it to the previous COLA that was approved. So in other words, the 2% COLA already approved was on top of the insurance that was in the previous year's budget. So if we put the total adjustment on that, we'd be double counting. So we have a correction to net out the 2% on top of last year's insurance cost. There's probably an easier way to say that, but I did my best. But anyway, that's what it shows that in this calculation. We're saying that the insurance adjustment, which would be on top of option 2, previously presented, would be the insurance cost, which in this year is $20,391 minus last year's insurance cost times 2%. That would translate to a $12,686 insurance increase, which, by the way, is the same number that we proposed for the insurance in the last option if it's to be approved as one time. And we calculated that to be 2.18%. So for this year, if the board was to select options 3, the COLA would be the COLA plus option 2 plus the insurance adjustment. It would be on Access Sacramento, a $29,685 adjustment, and that would translate to a 5.1% COLA instead of the 2% COLA approved, or 3.1% higher than the 2% COLA. So, and we would recommend that would be applied to all channel licensees if that option was approved. Now, and then this table again shows the effect of that the increase on the general fund would be $37,150 for this option, and the increase on the PEG fund would be $4,450 for this option. Option 4 is organizational COLA. I believe this was mentioned at the last board meeting. We also had a fair discussion about this at the meeting with the channel licensees. And, you know, if there was a adjustment factor that you can look up that captured some of these costs, I think that would make some of this math a lot easier. We looked at a nonprofit resource center. We looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We talked to some people. I found some overall total comp indexes that were a little bit different than CPI, but the differences I was finding wasn't greatly different. I mean, it was maybe a 0.5% at best. So we certainly looked at readily available indexes that would maybe make this process a little bit easier than the option 2 or option 3 previously presented. But so far, really haven't found anything that I could recommend as anything better than the CPI adjustment that we already are using. So if the board prefers that this be the approach, we can continue to research that, talk to more organizations and try to find something better. Then the other problem is every organization's different. Access Sacramento is made up, that most of their funding goes towards employees. KVIE, SECC, they have a different mix. They don't spend all their money on those types of things. So finding an index that actually mirrors your organization is really difficult to do. And that's really what option 2 and 3 are, is trying to develop an index based upon the channel licensees. And we think the approach that we've presented today makes more sense than trying to pick the COLA out there that works better than the current COLA that we have. So with that, so staff is recommending the board discuss the options and select one. Staff is recommending option 2. There would need to be an appropriations adjustment with any of the options selected, and that's actually agenda item 4 on today's agenda. And also we're asking the board to authorize the executive director to execute amendments to channel licensees fiscal year 17-18 annual funding and performance agreement. With that, I just want to point out one thing. We did have some math errors in the staff report, and on the dais is an exhibit. And it's called Exhibit A, Option 2, and it updates the financial information that was included, the same table basically in the staff report. It's just a minor adjustment. It doesn't change it significantly, but in your motion today, should you choose option 2, we would suggest that you choose option 2, but with the updated revised exhibit as presented by staff. So with that concludes my presentation, and like I said, it seemed like an education in high school math, but I can certainly try to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. I'm seeing no public comment here on this, so I'm going to turn it over to board comments, and have first one from Don Natoli.
Yep. Thanks, Bob, certainly to you and your staff for preparing this, and obviously with the help of accessing information that you needed. I think it was a good follow-on. You give us some choices here today. I want to be clear about the option 2 then in the insurance piece of that. So if we were to do that, obviously it's still a board choice, but if we were to do the additional for the insurance, and I think that the acknowledgement, obviously, of purchasing some new equipment, with that, it's not just the capital price, but also ensuring that, particularly in the early years of any amortization, the value of that equipment. And that's not unimportant, because I think wasn't there a year or two ago where one of the trucks got broken into or something like that? Mm-hmm. So, and I think we dealt with some of that, and I know Gary's here and others that could address that. But so if we did that this year, then I want to be clear, though, for the one time, what would be then the request next year? Is that would become a part of the 2%?
Well, I think that...
Or you'd cross that when you get there? I wanna be sure.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if we did it this year, you would take care of it this year, and then in the conversations based upon direction out of this, you'd take that up and we'd see what we see next year, depending upon what those insurance costs and so forth.
So there are insurance reductions next year, we can reduce the amount.
I got it. Okay, all right. So if there was some so again, it's kind of share in the gain or share in the pain, and obviously I know it's tough when you're a nonprofit and trying to make all the ends meet, but, okay, so then the total for that would then be the $29,000 total, if we added insurance? 29,685.
So it's not 29 for access, it would be the $12,685 for the insurance,
Yes.
plus the $5,295 on the COLA, and that's in excess of the 2% COLA already approved. So you're probably okay, I think you're adding the 2% COLA already approved, which was about 11,000 to 12,000.
Okay, yeah, 'cause I guess the numbers I was looking at, if I went to page 3 of your agenda item, which is under, and you had them all our options, but then,
Yes, you're right. So the total effect of a 2.91% COLA on Access Sacramento would be the $29,685.
okay. And so if we're backing out of there for today's purposes, if we wanted to consider the insurance, and then the minimum wage piece would be that total would be what? That would be 3,500 plus the 12,000, so it'd be closer to 16,000 total?
So the, oh, sorry.
So you recommend option 2, and I guess I was just trying to follow that option.
Yeah.
Option 2 is 16,999 without the insurance.
I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time going backwards on my staff report. So, so first, the minimum wage cost was $3,540.
Okay, right.
Then the minimum wage plus the 2% COLA already approved is the $3,540 plus $11,638. Then on top of that would be the $1,821 for the payroll support.
Okay.
And then also on top of that would be the $12,685 for the increased insurance.
Okay, so if the supplemental piece, if we were to go with all 3 of the additions to the 2% COLA, would be the 3,540 plus the 1821 plus the 12,685, right?
Yes, yes, 3,540 plus 1821 plus 12,685.
Okay, and that would be the additional over and above what we've already allocated.
What you've already approved, correct.
Okay, and then you would recommend that the 12,685, if you were going to recommend it, that would be a one-time
Correct.
request, and we'd be revisiting that again next year. Okay, and so what is the total then if you take 12,685, 3,540, and 1821?
I'm sorry, say that again?
At 3,540, 1821, and 12,685, what's the total amount we would be supplementing them? Is that the 1699? No, it's not.
No.
No, it's not. That's why I said I want to know what the over and above the 2% we already given. What would that?
Okay, over and above the 2%. Yeah, hold on.
I'll probably add it as quick as I can.
I think it's good. It's yeah.
Right.
So yes, thank you, Harriet. So I'll point you to the Exhibit A that's on the dais, and I believe, Mr. Natoli, that would be $17,980.
Okay, so that's the number if we wanted to do the other 3 components.
Correct.
Okay, right. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Al Fox.
Just a quick question. How much of the funding for them are we actually responsible for?
So we're not, there's no, as far as I know, there's no set percent of what we're responsible for. I think we have a history of funding a base to each of the channel licensees, and typically the base that's approved in a certain year is the starting point. And then at every budget meeting, there's a discussion about the base. And in past years, the base has stayed the same. It's increased. And sometimes, for certain channel licensees, it did increase where others didn't. For example, when Access Sacramento started doing their Game of the Week and when they started doing their hometown TV, there was a specific decision that was made to increase their base to accommodate those extra productions.
But are they bringing in funds to supplement these changes, or are we basically funding these changes out of hand? I'm curious of where we stand. At what percentage are we actually paying of their operation?
So I don't have an exact percent, and I'm sure some of the channel licensees can come and answer that question. I know that we had a recent meeting with the channel licensees, and that discussion came up. And certainly one of the points made was Access Sacramento certainly relies on the commission funding more so than, let's say, SECC or KVIE does. And Gary Martin at that meeting, and he's certainly here and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some of the comments were is that it would be a good idea if their board could move closer to a fundraising board. And Gary did say that he's been having some discussions with his board and that they have talked about becoming a governance and fundraising board as opposed to just being a governance board.
Because I'm not raising this, as a matter of complaint or anything else. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around of why we have the operation coming to us for more and more funding rather than raising funding as a nonprofit to support themselves, and it doesn't seem to add up. And I realize that staff's work has been very good on this, and even though it's a little convoluted in a couple of spots, it does in fact make some sort of sense. What I'm afraid of us doing is I don't want to become the sole support of one licensee over the others, or seen as being the sole support or the majority support. And I think that that's something we need to work with them to try to rectify if they can, because this is going to continue year after year. We're starting to cut more and more into the money we might be able to use across the board, and I would not like us to see us do that. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to echo some of those comments and mention that, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable to be giving more money to entities that are not wanting it and they're not asking for it. When you have KVIE and SECC saying that they're fine with the current model, and you have one that's saying that it's a problem, it's concerning to me that we'd be giving this blanket amount to everybody to be increasing, and that's one of my concerns with the recommended option. And another one is that, I'm concerned that we're going to be running into this problem every time that we have minimum wage increases or any kind of alterations. If they're so reliant on these funds coming from this body, that this is going to be a continual thing. And I would really, I think the idea of moving their board to a more fundraising style would be very beneficial to them. We're seeing this problem happening, probably across the country right now. We're certainly seeing it a lot here locally, where those that are really dependent on government funds, when they get into trouble, they can be faced with serious problems. And those that are doing a lot of fundraising on their own are able to survive a lot of these issues. And so those are some concerns I have with the second option. And I'd really like to see some more fundraising being done on there to help themselves. Got a comment here from Howard Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I get older, I tend to appreciate simplicity. And I look at option 4, it just seems too confusing for me. I reached that same conclusion for option 3. Option 2, I kind of like the status quo. And, KVIE can show Riverdance for the 20th time, and we'll be compelled to write a check because we want to get it off the air. Access Sacramento, maybe they can hold some other fundraisers to help meet their needs. Likewise, Capital Radio, can run some broadcasts and drive us crazy, and we can send a check in to help them. But I kind of think I prefer just to keep the status quo. It's simple, it's easy, it's understandable, and the organizations, I think, have a responsibility to fundraise to meet their costs. Thank you.
Don Natoli?
Yeah, I would just, I guess, earlier I'd ask questions, but I get to comment a bit. And I certainly appreciate that these organizations, again, have a broader base, if that's achievable, certainly of subscribership and viewers, but also of support. But I think part of what sets this cable system apart from Again, I'm not familiar with others throughout the nation, but certainly I think when it comes to local programming and the opportunity for the 4 organizations that are shown here on the screen, and that we all know well, and we get reports monthly. I think we're very blessed in some ways that we have, and certainly the some of the funding support, a good deal of it in some cases has come through this commission and flowed through this commission to them, and obviously back to the member entities. But I think part of the subscriber base, because we have offerings, and not everybody wants to watch Metro 14 or or Sports Channel, whatever. There are other offerings, and I think the opportunity here in this setting is for us to reinvest in, again, organizations that aren't solely dependent upon the cable commission and the resources that come through those that pay their subscribership and then funnels through this commission. So I guess my bottom line point is that I think these are pretty modest requests. Granted, we can visit them from year to year, and I think we want to keep encouraging access, and certainly public radio and KVIE and SECC to the degree that they can grow their base to do that. But I also think that the request before us is pretty modest, and these are things that we all face, and you don't want to be the sole level of support. But that programming and the variety and the quality, again, and there's something for just about everybody. If you look at even what's on the screen there, I think it's well worth the investment we make, and I would, for one, be supportive certainly of option 2. But as it relates to access, I would think the one-time insurance consideration, recognize they did some upgrades that allowed them to do high definition, also to be out in more mobile setting to cover events and activities and communities that we all represent. And I just think that, again, each year we can visit that. We don't have to build it into the base necessarily as much as they might like that, but I would be supportive of the option 2. And then giving the insurance boost for this year, and then coming back, and we'll see what next year brings. So that's my thoughts. Thanks.
Sarah Paulo?
I echo Mr. Natoli's comments and think Access SAC is very important for the community, and the request here for option 2, which I also agree with and would recommend the board going with, is fairly modest, and we do have to adjust with minimum wage increases and other things that face entities like Access SAC. But I did have a question. I remember when you presented, Gary, I think it was in July, that there were some barriers to fundraising for Access SAC. Access SAC had unique situations that are, for example, very different than Capital Public Radio. Is he able to remind us what those barriers were and why this is such a unique situation for them, and how you cannot compare Capital Public Radio to Access SAC, for example?
I think it's appropriate if the chair requests for certain members of the audience to come up and answer questions.
Certainly. I'd like to invite Gary Martin to respond to that question.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to chat. I did come in with a prepared statement, and I'm not sure if the paperwork got pushed through, but I do want to thank the Commission for having this discussion. It's an important one in terms of supporting the work that we do. In direct answer, Commissioner Polo, to your question, yes, Access Sacramento as a public access broadcaster does not have the educational side or the government side, which many access centers put together in other communities as a three-way kind of PEG process. We're only the public side of PEG, P as in public and education and government. So we have 3 entities that deal with those pieces, and our framework is a little bit different. As a community access center, we provide training and equipment resources, the equipment being provided by you, and you provide rent for us, and we're able to open up our facilities for the community to create programs. Part of the discussion that I had relates to the idea of transitioning members in our organization who pay $30 annually into bigger donors and fundraisers. For people who belong to a membership organization, they many times believe they deserve services, and we provide those services. But to, for example, even get someone to transition into making a $25 donation at the big day of giving in addition to their $30 annual membership truly is a mind shift for the members who are there. We have also, in our organization, a large elderly population who many times are on fixed incomes. Those people who come in as a senior member, for example, for $20, many times have trouble boosting that amount even at that small level in order to keep their voice on the air. And so to the extent that we're the free speech and public access opportunity for people to share their voice, to participate in a political way, to have conversations that are not otherwise heard in commercial broadcasting, we provide a big service to the community. In answer to your question, Mr. Fox, about fundraising, we raise about $120,000 a year between memberships, classes, fundraisers. This year, in direct response to the board, we created a gala event that we call our Power of Voice Award, and we're able to generate some money there. As a first-time event, we were pleased with that result. This year, we pushed very heavily on our place called Sacramento Film Festival, which showcases 10 original films around Sacramento County, and we're able to do a sellout. But those tickets are still just movie tickets, $12 each. So we do a variety of things to raise money, but it is an ongoing challenge to convert members into donors. And even on the big day of giving, I'm sure you all understand how easy it is to give to the puppies and feed animals, and when you then have to also choose to support free speech and democracy and the community voice, somehow it just doesn't quite sell the same way. So partly it's marketing, but it's also an awareness that in this world of giving, that free speech and public access has not been at the top of everyone's list. Number one donation people make is to their church. And then after that, to those things they love. And everybody loves puppies. So free speech and democracy is in there, and we get some of those dollars. But it would be nice to make it easier. And if you don't mind a personal comment, I really do want to thank Bob, the staff, for their dedication in researching this issue and hearing our understanding, our concerns. The idea of the pay raise COLA that the county provides, and then adjusting that more toward an organizational kind of cost in this discussion, I believe was understood by the staff, and I truly appreciate their efforts in trying to push something forward that is understandable and beneficial, I think, to all the licensees.
Thank you. Lori Hewer?
I would also support option 2, but, regarding the comments about giving to the organizations that did not request, since Access Sacramento is actually the one that brought it to our attention, and Capital Radio and KVIE and SECC did not, I still think it's really important to increase the base funding for all of the organizations and to treat the licensees basically equal, even though there's going to be adjustments. I still think it's important to keep that base funding the same for all of the organizations. So I would support option 2.
All right. Lisa Nava?
Thank you. I have a question, and I apologize, just a lot of info. On option 2, the one-time insurance adjustment, did I hear mention that was for the break-in and replacing equipment, or can you confirm that piece for me?
And Mr. Martin may be able to give you a better answer, but it's basically due to a significant increase that they experienced in their insurance from roughly $7,000 to the $24,000 range. And I believe it was due to a variety of reasons. I think one was security reasons, the fact that they purchased the HD truck, so increasing equipment cost, plus I believe some break-ins that they had, and I think they also had an insurance claim on some equipment that got damaged in the rain when their truck leaked when they first got it. Now, I could be wrong about some of those points, so Mr. Martin can correct me if that's not correct.
Please go ahead.
The two parts of the insurance increase were brought, number one, by the increased valuation of the PEG equipment that was purchased. Although the previous year we took the purchasing of the truck along the path, we did not take full delivery of the truck until the start of the next fiscal year. So in addition to the truck, we also had our HD studio expansion. All of those pieces hit in the same year, which is why this year the insurance went up. We've increased the value of the insurance policy against the new equipment. And yes, not a specific amount, but there was a rate adjustment essentially against the fact that we had had a claim.
Okay. So is it, excuse me, completely ridiculous to wonder why we couldn't do option 1, the status quo 2% plus the one-time adjustment for access, thinking that if any of the stations had an emergency or a weird situation like that, that we would want to support them because it's kind of a unique situation? Or is that just no way?
So I'm kind of confused because that sounds like option 2. So option 2 is the general adjustments for the minimum wage that we're discussing today, plus a one-time for the insurance. But yes, you could also
trying to separate the minimum wage and federal and payroll taxes, or is that my misunderstanding?
Yeah, so if you didn't want to do option 2 and you liked option 1 but wanted to do the insurance and then adjustment, then that would be something that the board can certainly approve as well.
Okay, I agree with a lot of the comments across the board here, and I feel like we are going to be coming back regardless of what we do today because of the minimum wage every year, and I don't like that as kind of like some of my colleagues here, so I'm just trying to think it through. So thank you.
Sure.
That's all I needed.
I think my fat fingers knocked off Al Fox's name on here. Do you still have a comment?
Yes, just first of all, thank you so much for the clarification. Being the new kid on the block here, I was not here in July when apparently some of the discussion was had, but more importantly, I kicked over a rock so that I could get an idea of where you were coming from and why these things were occurring. And I appreciate what you said about the efforts that you have made. I'm familiar with some of the things you did this last year, and so my comments were not critical to the point that I don't like what you're doing. My comments are, how do we get here and why are we funding this way? I have to say that with that in mind, while I'm still a little reluctant to some extent, I will still go with option 2.
Sarah Paulo? You name didn't knock off? No worries.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments from the board? Prepared to receive a motion if there is one?
Motion to approve option 2 with Exhibit A.
I'd like to second that.
Okay.
Thank you. With the exhibit, could we just clarify with the Exhibit A that was handed out and is on the dais? Just because there is an Exhibit A in the report, and this just...
A revised 12/7/2017.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent. Can we do voting at the board today on the machines? Excellent. So let's open up the vote.
Is the voting supposed to go up on the board?
There you go. We have.
No worries. Okay.
I'm sorry, Lisa. Lisa, I don't think you voted yet. Okay. So I'm going to.
We want to just do a voice vote and.
Sure, we can do that too.
Can we go back?
No on that.
I was no.
Oh, we didn't show it.
Yeah, I think we're having some problems on the computer.
Should we try it once more, or?
Did you want to do a voice vote? Did we want to do on the screen?
Let's just go ahead and do a roll call vote so we can get individual votes. Do you mind calling for a roll call vote?
Okay, Brian is absent. Detrick is absent. Hedges.
Aye.
Polo.
Aye.
McKee. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hewer.
Aye.
Natoli.
Aye.
Schmidt.
No.
Nava.
No.
Fox.
Aye.
And ex officio Gatewood is here with us, but does not vote, correct?
Ex officio, he certainly can express his opinion. It doesn't count in the vote tally, being ex officio.
Here we don't get a chance to vote.
So,
Right, so the way the commission is set up, the smaller cities share one representative until you reach a certain population, which I believe is...
no,
it's like...
it,
I'm sorry, I didn't bring it with me.
85,000?
85,000.
Something like that?
And so that's why some of the cities share one vote, and some of the cities have their own representative. And so what we've done over the years is the smaller cities that share a vote can send someone to sit at the commission and participate, but your vote in this case is held by Ms. Hewer because she's the one who was appointed by the group of small cities.
All right. Let's move to the next item. Item number 3.
Vice Chair Hedges, I apologize. The motion, Bob, does not include the direction we need for staff to do the other 3 items. So we need to clarify that. I believe the motion was to adopt option 2 with the revised exhibit, but we also need that to include the direction for the other 3 items.
So, so Board Member Hewer, if you could revise your motion to include all of staff recommendations, which includes option 2, with the Exhibit A dated 12/7/17, which was on the dais, then I think that would clarify the issue that Ms. Liu was bringing up.
Revise my motion.
Right.
To accept staff recommendation, option 2.
And the remaining staff recommendations.
And the remaining staff recommendations. And with Exhibit A revised 12/7/2017.
Right.
Thank you.
Now, with that, are we going to roll call, or do you want to try and do the electronic vote?
Vice Chair Hedges, what would you
Let's
prefer?
go ahead and try to do the electronic and see if it works. Excellent. Go ahead and vote.
Okay, and that's what I received in terms of the voice vote, 7 yeses and 2 noes, so the motion passes.
Okay.
The tally...
There's 2, yeah.
But the total's being counted.
Right.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Okay, it's still.
Tally's right.
Okay.
All right, let's move to item number 3. Clerk, can you read into the record?
Item number 3 is resolution number 2017-0011, adopting the proposed mid-year general fund and PEG fee fund budget adjustments for fiscal year 17-18 based on the option that was just approved.
So this stems from the last staff report. It's an appropriations adjustment so we can move money and allow to happen what was just approved. And basically in the PEG fund and in the general fund, we'd be using contingency and moving the contingency appropriation to the appropriations to pay for the increased base amounts in the general and PEG funds to the channel licensees. I do recommend that you adopt today's resolution with, however, that Exhibit A of the resolution be modified to include the information that was in the Exhibit A on the dais dated 12/7/17.
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
And the motion passes. Thank you.
Item number 4.
Hold on.
Excuse me. So there was a no vote on the bottom. Was that you? Okay, because you're not, okay.
That's
so
the
you got
phantom
that.
voter.
So I just want to clear for the record that Mr. Schmidt voted no because it didn't show on the individual votes.
It's funny, I'm sorry, because I'm seeing on the screen as a no, so I'm not sure why it's not
It
being
didn't show
displayed on
on
the screen.
my screen.
So what I'm looking at indicates both times that he voted no.
Okay, I think
Try again.
Okay. So moving to the next item, item number 4. Clerk, will you please read into the record?
Item number 4 is resolution number 2017-012, delegating authority to the executive director to enter into a new office lease agreement for office space with the County of Sacramento.
Good afternoon again. This lease agreement, I'm definitely supporting. 5 years ago, we moved from a building that wasn't all that nice. I'm not going to point out where that building was, but it was certainly an issue. And for either the same or even lesser of a price, the county accommodated us in their Department of Technology building. And so for the past 5 years, we've enjoyed really nice office space with really good security and other features in the county building, and then also helping out one of our member agencies that happen to have leasable space. This new agreement is for the same, it's very similar to the last one. It's a 5-year term. The amount is a modest increase over the amount we're currently paying. The last lease was based on 1,000 square foot. Based on a recent measurement of the space, we're actually occupying 1,179 square feet of space. So for the past 5 years, we've gotten 179 free square feet of space. So we appreciate that from the county. But even with that addition, this cost is not much more. The support costs we paid at the county are very reasonable and not too much higher than the current contract. So I certainly recommend that you adopt today's resolution delegating me the authority to execute this new office space lease agreement with the county.
I just want to note, too, that there's, you can't really put a price tag on it, but there's something to be said about feeling safe when you go into work for the employees. So I'm definitely supportive of this item. I'm seeing no comments. Let's open it up for a vote.
I'll move.
Second.
Excellent.
Okay. And the motion passes. Thank you.
No more free closet space, Bob.
Still not showing?
The tally's right. His name's not on the screen.
Yeah, he doesn't show up. If you look at it, Howard's not up there. Right?
Next item, item number 5. Please read into the record.
Item number 5 are the letters of agreement for analysis of franchise and PEG fees paid by Comcast and Consolidated Communications in calendar years 2015 and 16.
As your commission is aware, in recent years, we use OSPA and Skolko to perform commission audits of our local franchise, state franchises, including Consolidated, AT&T, and Comcast. Those audits have netted to positive impacts for the commission and for the community in identifying dollars that were owed to the commission. OSPA and Skolko has done a very good job in those audits. It seems like we're always doing audits here, but already the next Comcast audit for calendar years 15 and 16 is up, and if we don't do it in a timely fashion, then certainly we won't be able to recover anything from any results of these audits. So with that, I'm recommending that your board authorize me to sign the letters of agreement with OSPA and Skolko to perform the audit of Comcast and Consolidated Communications for their franchise and PEG fees paid to the commission.
Okay. Are there any board comments? No?
I'll move.
All right, please vote.
And the motion passes. Thank you.
All right, so can the clerk please read item number 6 into the record?
Item number 6 is another resolution number 2017-013, authorizing the issuance of a subpoena related to the review of franchise and PEG fees paid by Comcast in calendar years 2015 and 16.
So this is related to the last item. In order to perform those audits, it's prudent to get a subpoena authorized. Comcast hasn't been too much of a problem in regards to subpoenas, but we've had other cable companies basically stop our audits, and we had to come back to the commission to get subpoenas because they weren't going to provide the information needed unless we had a subpoena. So just to be proactive, and even though they haven't asked for it in the past, it's prudent to request this subpoena so that we have one in case there's a problem with the audit in getting the information that we need. So with that, I recommend that you adopt today's resolution authorizing the issuance of a subpoena.
I'll move.
Second.
All right, please vote.
There you go. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Next item, will the clerk please read into the record?
Item number 7 is the revised calendar year 2018 quarterly board meeting schedule.
So we're recommending that you receive and file the meetings for next year. I will point out 2 changes. Policy is that we have the meeting on the first Thursday of March, June, September, and December. But this year we actually have 2 conflicts, and we can't get the board chambers for those meetings. So for the June meeting and the October meeting, we have alternate. For the June meeting and the September meeting, we have alternate dates, and those dates are June 28th and October 4th. And with that, I recommend that you receive and file this, and we'll certainly have commission staff coordinate these meeting dates with your staffs.
Any board comments? Okay, excellent. Great. Will the clerk?
Do we need to?
Do we need to
No, that was
file it?
Receive and file.
Just receive and file. All right. Will the clerk please read the next item into the record?
Item number 8 is to receive verbal reports from our staff.
Okay, good afternoon, good afternoon. I have to look up to remember where I am in the day. I have 3 items I want to discuss quickly. First is the classification and compensation study. We've hired a consultant who's working on that study. They're working quite hard. We've had many meetings lately. We hope to bring this, I was hoping to bring it to this meeting, but we do hope to bring it to the March meeting. As I've said before, the commission is unique. It's a little bit difficult to do such a study on the commission because of the unique positions that we have, such as production directors and production assistants and technical assistants and such. So with that, it wasn't unexpected, but we're finding the study a little bit complicated, but we're working through it, and we hope to have that back to you in March. So I'll move on to the next item, which is the Telecom Advocacy Coalition lobbying efforts, which is Harriet's firm, Best and Krieger, put together an effort to lobby for telecom cable type things. The idea was that we're not proactive enough, so the idea was to put this coalition together. And we did. It had good results, and as you know, SB 649, which was the small cell bill, some call it the 5G bill, that was sponsored by Verizon and supported by other telecommunication companies, that would have allowed for the use of the rights of way without much scrutiny or cost. That bill was vetoed by the governor, and I think a lot of it had to do with the lobbyists that was retained by this coalition, so that had a positive effect. I'm not sure if the coalition's going to continue, Harriet. I don't know if you know. There weren't. I think they hoped to get more cities and counties involved than were involved. So it was.
I think we're monitoring right now. I mean, part of the reason that the coalition was put together was because there was a feeling amongst a group of cities and counties that we were always reactive and never proactive, and therefore when we started lobbying, we were already behind in our lobbying efforts. I haven't talked to my partners who do this, whether they plan on continuing. I would think that they do. There's a fair focus right now in Washington because of the a bill or a movement similar to 649 on a national scale, and so they're putting a lot of effort into that, and also the net neutrality proceeding that's starting. So I haven't talked to them about California recently, but my assumption is it will keep going. I'm not sure if the form will be exactly the same as it was last year.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the next item, number 3 on this item, is the request for funding to create public service announcements. So So this is a request that actually was presented to us by Sarah Polo. She was carrying the request forward from Councilmember Guerra. And the request is to see if it's possible to flex the Cable Commission and to allow for public service announcements, other type of information, short 15, 30, 45-second PSAs to be produced by, through support by the Cable Commission. And the idea is that for the June budget of next year, a budget request could come forward that could support PSAs being produced. The flexing would be that both Access Sacramento and also Metro Cable have the ability to do some of these public service announcements. And the goal is to offer these to elected officials and member agencies who have this need. Certainly some may use it more than others. So we got together with Sarah Polo, and we had a good discussion. We wanted to, since this idea was presented to us, we wanted to make sure the commission board was aware that this was requested and it was something that was being worked on for next June. Also, so going forward, as we talked about having a meeting in January to flesh out this idea, what it means, what the budget request would be, how Access Sacramento staff and Metro Cable staff could be utilized to be able to create PSAs. We also talked about bringing back in the March meeting a more fleshed out idea of this request. That's a follow-up to the meeting that we're talking about taking place in January, and getting authorization to create a pilot, a pilot that we can possibly show at the June budget meeting if whatever pilot is finished by then. And I'm not sure if that can be finished by then or not. So with that, I'm just really telling you that we got this request. We plan to meet on it in January. There's going to be a March item to discuss a pilot and possibly a June budget request to support this idea. And I just wanted to make you aware of that. Board Member Polo, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to my comments or if I got anything wrong on that.
No, it's all right. It'd be very, very short. Eric's idea, at least for him, from his perspective, was showing a 30-second PSA, for example, before and or right after his movie nights during the summer, and they would focus on a topic, so public safety, or in this case, for the pilot, if our board authorizes moving forward with the pilot, would focus on water conservation. This is something that we'd want to open up for the whole commission, as well as member agencies, as Bob just mentioned. But we want to see how it goes, and the budget we're hoping will be minimal. I've been in talks with commission staff, Metro 14, on collecting some cost estimates on their end, plus I got a cost estimate from Access Sac, and it's looking to be very, very minimal, $5,000–6,000, something like that. So we are talking about it, and like Bob said, we'll flesh out the idea a little bit more, and then hopefully have something more concrete to present in March to you all.
Excellent. I think that's a great idea and something to chew on, but I wonder if, we got a fantastic presentation a couple of meetings back from Del Campo High School and their video production team. I'm sure there's others out there, and I wonder if we could utilize some students for some of the production or maybe some of the ideas, but be interested in seeing if
that's on the table too. That's a great idea.
Fantastic.
So I believe you just invited Liz Rhodes to that meeting as well.
We did.
Great. Are you finished with your report, Bob?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Great. So let's move on to the next item. Clerk, can you please read into the record?
Item number 9 are reports from channel licensees.
Great. So I'd like to first invite Gary Martin, representing Access Sacramento.
First and foremost, thank you for your support in this earlier item. So only one kind of update because it's a little different. We do, of course, Hometown TV, Game of the Week events and other programming in support of our membership. But this year, for the very first time, we were able to bring a program on the air in partnership with Sacramento State University. The Causeway Classic football game between Sacramento State and UC Davis football has not been on television in many years. And the new athletic director at CSUS, Matt Oakes, was interested in possibly getting that game back on television. He went to Comcast Sportsnet and asked if they would produce the game, and they said yes. They'd be happy to for $37,500. They would be happy to put that game on television. And so thank you to all of you for putting the Causeway Classic back on television, because as part of Hometown TV, we did a partnership with them, and that game was broadcast live and then repeated multiple times over the next week. So in partnership, we're able to create programming that is not otherwise seen or supported by commercial television. We thank you for bringing that voice, that opportunity into the community. One of the unique pieces of what Access Sacramento can do for this community. And so thank you for all of your support and for the vote earlier today for the budget augmentation. Thank you.
Question about the Sac State game. Do you know, and the B for football puts the TV things. Did they list that?
Yes, they did. It was they now in the sports page list all of our live games. They don't do anything that's tape delayed, but anything that's live is listed in the TV listings. So we thank the Sacramento Bee for starting that actually a couple of years ago. And Eileen Voisin did a special article about that particular game, and we were actually listed in the little box. That's the little highlight box of where media and television, and we were included there as well. So that, I think, is the first time we've kind of made it that far. I don't know that Joe Davison has ever included our Game of the Week in his little box there, but maybe that's a high school thing. I don't know. But it was a lot of fun to be a part of that broadcast. And yes, the Bee is supporting us. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Before that, I'd like to point out that staff, Cable Commission staff, asked Gary if we can attend one of the Game of the Weeks, and so myself and Kristen Riggs and Kevin and Bill Piper, we attended the Game of the Week that was at the Antelope High School. And it was an amazing experience to watch, and I would recommend to any board member who's interested in that to ask Gary for some similar treatment, because it's actually fascinating to watch their production and how they do it, and it's amazing how efficient they are. It was a good experience, and I appreciate you accommodating staff with that tour.
It was our pleasure. That which we do all the time. It's nice to get some kudos from those people who come in to see it. If you're not experienced with watching a very interactive, lively kind of broadcast, in all deference to the Metro 14 staff, who has one director and technical director and kind of can do it with the pan tilt zoom cameras here, to do that in a live sporting event is much more aggressive a production. And when you're talking about 4 cameras in replay and a live graphics package and all of that, it is a lot of fun. I can tell you there's nothing better than live TV.
Matt,
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add, too, that I'm looking forward to touring Access Sac and possibly getting that opportunity as well with myself and Tyler Aguilar as well.
All of you are invited to come see our facility at the Coloma Community Center. And since we're on live television, I will just remind everyone that the Coloma Center tonight is hosting Snow Much Fun, District 6 lighting of its Christmas tree. And Eric Guerra will be there, and we'll be supplying the extra lighting and a little bit of video support for Snow Much Fun tonight at 6 o'clock at the Coloma Community Center, 46th and T Street.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again. Let's have David Lowe from KVAE.
Hi, David Lowe, president of KVAE. I was going to tell you about our all-new River Dance special, but Commissioner Schmidt kind of, unless he wants to just throw money at me to not talk about it, because it sounds like that's how that works. So.
Send him a CD or DVD too, Dave, just in case.
They haven't aired that in a few years. I don't know what you're watching, but
I just remember one of your predecessors, Van Suter, used to used that as a plug to raise money, and I thought it was very effective.
I will take that into advisement. I did want to share with you the results of the highlight of our fall schedule, which was the Ken Burns Vietnam War. And it was 18 hours, and we heard from a number of people in the region, and they reached out to us thanking us for airing it. And as you can imagine, for some it was very difficult to watch. And then, of course, for others, they got very angry when they found out so much that they didn't know at the time, and that has really just kind of come out through that film. We even heard from a retired teacher who taught the Vietnam War, and she said, I wish this would have been available to me when I was teaching because there was so much I didn't know. So that's part of the education that we do. It's going to be available for quite some time. And we were one of the top rated stations in the country with that because, of course, of our rich military history with the bases and people who still live here. I also wanted to give you a quick update through the generosity of part of our PEG grant. We had a little bit of a Millennium Tower issue, if you're familiar with that in San Francisco, and that tower that is sunk and then tilted. We had a mini Millennium Tower issue at KVIE because of some roots and water settling issues and some trees that were planted too close to the building in the late 80s when it was built. We had some settling, and it was down 2 inches. Not a lot, but it was going to keep going. So as part of the project, we were able to lift it back up through an amazing feat of technology called Push Pier Foundation Lift. If you ever look that up, it's a pretty neat video on YouTube. And that's a process that we used, and we had poles that went down into the ground until they hit bedrock. Some of them hit bedrock at 30 feet, some hit at 60 feet. And then once they did that, they lift the building up 2 inches. It's now stabilized. It's all put back together. We just need to do some of the landscaping, but no more Millennium Tower issue, at least at KVIE. So thank you.
That's great.
Just want to note, I watched that Ken Burns special. It was my first one that I'd ever watched of his, and it was fantastic. And I was speaking with some people that had watched multiple of them, and they mentioned how they thought it was his best one yet. So it was a great experience. And if nobody had seen it, I'd really encourage you to.
All 18 hours.
For all 18 hours, and that's not, of course, the only war that he has covered. The Civil War was the one that really brought him to fame, but also the war about World War II, and they did that through the lens of 4 quintessentially American towns, and Sacramento was one of the 4.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. And last we have Liz Rhodes with SECC.
It was. I had to take breaks.
It's the sympathy vote. I don't have the hang of it yet. Good afternoon. I'm Liz Rhodes with Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium. Just 2 items. One's a real fun one, and I'll save that for last. But the other one is wanted to say thank you to Harriet and Bob and Karen for really trying to push and help us, and your comments from last meeting for BestNet. We're terribly disappointed that it isn't moving forward, or it's moving very, very slowly, but not because of lack of interest on our part. And it does affect 3 of our districts, and they are having a very difficult time, just in terms of we have 3 districts left that need connection. So we're trying to look at other opportunities on that. So I just couldn't let the meeting go without a comment about that. But on to something positive. It is the season, and I always like to share with you some of the amazing things that some of our students do. So we have a short video that I'd like to share with you from one of our elementary schools that did a holiday concert with some pretty unusual international holiday songs that you don't normally hear. So if we could roll that, I'd like to leave that with you for a happy holiday season.
Traditional Hebrew song entitled Hanukkah, Hanukkah. The translation is, Hanukkah is a great holiday, surrounded with lovely light, fun for little children. Dreidel, spin, spin, spin. How wonderful. Hanukkah, Hanukkah, or Haviv, Misaviv, Way. The direct translation of Way means leaves, and the song refers to how people can get positive energy from nature. We hope you enjoy it. Singing for you is Give Us Hope, written by Poulos. This song expresses hope for a better world. We hope that we can all be kinder to each other. We hope our parents spend more time with us. We hope we can eat healthier. We hope that adults will listen to what kids have to say.
Holiday season for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
It's the cutest thing I've seen in a while. All right, let's move on to the next item. Please read the record.
Item number 10 are state franchisee reports.
I don't see any of our state franchisees here. No? All right. Let's move on to item number 11. And I'm not seeing anybody else here for public comment. So we'll move into the adjournment. Been waiting to do this for a few months again. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.